How valid are your Terraria hot takes? I recently asked you guys what your hot takes were for Terraria, and I got a lot of replies. So today we're going to be looking over a few of them and determining whether you guys have good points or not. If you want to be a part of videos like this in the future, make sure to subscribe because we are close to 30k, and of course, let's get into it. Terraria is meant for fun, not hardcore. If someone prefers classic mode to master mode, that's fine. I have seen a lot of people in this community say that classic mode just isn't worth playing, or that even if you're new to Terraria, you should start with expert or master mode, and I think that is ridiculous. They'll also act like you're crazy or you're just bad at the game if you like classic mode instead of expert or master mode, which again doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I personally prefer expert mode like most people because it has way more content, but that doesn't mean that classic mode isn't more fun for certain people. There's absolutely nothing wrong with liking classic mode. In fact, I think it's become kind of underrated these days, so I completely agree. Pre-hard mode is better than hard mode. I definitely see why people prefer hard mode in Terraria. For example, it has more boss fights, it has way better mobility, and it's way easier to do stuff like mine or even build. With that being said, I do agree that overall, the experience of hard mode just isn't the same as pre-hard mode for a few reasons. First of all, pre-hard mode is very focused on exploration, whereas hard mode is basically only focused on combat. You might start digging after you enter hard mode or start digging around the jungle after you defeat the mech bosses, but that's not really exploring, and that's more so grinding, you know what I mean? Exploration in Terraria's early game isn't as much of a grind. It's more about finding your new world and seeing what it has to offer, and finding chests and loot and heart crystals. The second reason I prefer pre-hard mode is a pretty common one, which is the fact that biome spread is not an issue. Biome spread is single-handedly the most annoying mechanic in Terraria, but that's only really in hard mode. Because biome spread doesn't really go underground in pre-hard mode, nor does it spread particularly fast even on the surface, you don't have to worry about it at all. In hard mode, on the other hand, I always have at least one house get completely destroyed by the corruption, making my pylon completely useless. It's also just insanely annoying to have to use a contaminator or dig around your entire base just to make sure it doesn't get corrupted. When it comes to pre-hard mode being better than hard mode, I think that they both have their ups and downs, but overall, I agree. Horseshoe balloons are slept on. Genuinely really good mobility pre-hard mode. These days, I wouldn't really say the horseshoe balloons are slept on because there are countless YouTube videos and threads out there of people explicitly saying they are the best pre-hard mode accessory in the entire game. The problem that I think a lot of people obviously overlook with items like the horseshoe balloons is how difficult they can be to obtain. In order to craft the bundle of horseshoe balloons, you need a sandstorm in a bottle, a cloud in a bottle, a blizzard in a bottle, 3 lucky balloons, and a lucky horseshoe. Pretty much none of those items can even be crafted. They can all only be obtained by getting lucky in chests or fishing for hours. Even if you get lucky in a world seat and you get a blizzard in a bottle, a cloud in a bottle, and 2 balloons from chests out of sheer luck, you still have at least a couple hours of grinding before you can get the bundle of horseshoe balloons. If you're doing a Terraria Forever world and you want to get literally every accessory possible, especially the best ones, then yeah, the bundle of horseshoe balloons are great. I have personally opted for getting this item in a few of my longer playthroughs, but to be fair and completely honest, it's not been very fun. To put this into perspective for you, getting the Terra Spark boots will probably take you significantly less time than the bundle of horseshoe balloons. They are very good for pre-hard mode, but I don't think they're slept on, and I definitely don't think they're easy to get, so I disagree. Duke Fishron's third phase feels like a spit in the face in an otherwise very enjoyable boss fight. I personally believe that Duke Fishron's third phase is actually a very pleasant surprise. There are no other bosses that get a new phase in expert mode. It is literally only Duke Fishron. To be completely honest, I think that Duke Fishron's third phase can be very frustrating when you first get it, but after you learn how it works, it's actually very fun. It has a very set pattern, it teleports back and forth, and you can dodge it when you know what you're doing. I feel like that's kind of the fun of Duke Fishron and Empress of Light in the first place, which is that they're both very fair, but they're both very difficult. When it comes to Duke Fishron's third phase being a spit in the face in an otherwise very enjoyable boss fight, I completely disagree. Ranged is a fun class. I want to start by saying that I think that Ranged is the least fun class in Terraria, no doubt. It has the worst gameplay variety, ammunition isn't really that fun to experiment with, and on top of that, the accessories for this class are very boring. With that being said, I definitely don't think that makes it a not fun class overall. Every class in Terraria is fun, and while I don't think Ranged is quite as fun as, say, Mage or Melee, I definitely think it's still enjoyable. Do I think it's the least fun class in the game? Absolutely. But do I agree that it's a fun class? Yes. Calamity should be added to vanilla Terraria as the true final update. I've actually seen this take everywhere, from Terraria Reddit to Terraria forums to even my own comments section. With how many people say this, you would assume that it actually makes a little bit of sense, but to me, I honestly don't think it really does. Calamity is a very fun mod, and I completely disagree with the kinds of people who say that it's super overrated or not fun. I think that is kinda crazy. But with that being said, just because a mod is good doesn't mean it should be the base game. Terraria is already an extremely overwhelming and overcomplicated game for any new player, and I think adding all of the Calamity content, which basically doubles the size of the game, would make it nearly impossible for anyone new. I also think that the Calamity mod has a very different artistic vision to the original game of Terraria. Terraria is kind of lighthearted and fun with a little bit of lore thrown in here and there that doesn't even make any sense, whereas the Calamity mod is very serious and cinematic and important. I don't say that to insult the game or the mod because I think both are very good, but I think they have completely different visions and very different game design, so they should not become one and the same. Calamity should not be vanilla Terraria. I disagree. The desert is the most underwhelming biome. I do have to agree that the desert biome has become very overwhelming over time. It used to be one of the most interesting and cool biomes in the entire game around 1.2, and nowadays it kind of feels like a shell of its former self. Other biomes have unique bosses or mini bosses or really good loot or their own special ore, and the desert doesn't have literally any of that. I mean, it does technically have amber as its own unique gem, but who cares? With that being said, I definitely wouldn't call it the most underwhelming biome in the whole game. It has some pretty good early game gear, and even has a few accessories like the ancient chisel, which are useful for the entire game. Do I think it should have its own boss? Absolutely. Do I wish there was more unique desert content? Yes. But is it the most underwhelming biome? I don't really think so. Technically, the marble biome is its own unique biome, and so is the granite biome, and so is the tundra. I mean, sure, the tundra technically has its own boss in Deerclops, but it certainly has less good gear overall than the desert. Space is technically its own biome as well, so is the underworld. I think it's fair to say that every biome I just listed has way less to offer the player than the desert overall. So while I wish the desert was a lot less underwhelming than it is today, I still wouldn't call it the most underwhelming biome, and I completely disagree. The Old One's army is fun. People seem to really hate the Old One's army, and I don't know if it's because they only play single player master mode or they just remember when it used to be a lot more challenging, but I personally believe, like this person, that it is a very good event. It has some of the best gear in the entire game, especially if you're playing Summoner, but even taking that out, I think it's very fun on its own. I think that Betsy is obviously a terrible boss fight, and some people might disagree with me on that, but even then, I still think that Betsy being bad doesn't make the entire event terrible. I think especially if you're on multiplayer, the Old One's army can be a great time, and so I completely agree that it is fun. And there you have it. Those are your Terraria hot takes and whether I agree or disagree with them. As always, make sure to leave a comment saying what you think or your Terraria hot take that I can respond to, and make sure to join the Discord server to talk about Terraria and get caught up with my content. Alright, bye-bye.